Coming up, do you remember when you used to have a lot of free time? You know, before you had this family which is gobbled up every minute of your day. So free time or family? You can't apparently have both, is that right? But you have grown pretty attached to your family, so I guess we're going to have to keep them. So what time habits can free you up and get your sanity back? We'll be talking about that next up on The Matt Townsend Show. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Matt Townsend Show. I am your host, Matt Townsend, your relationship coach, your life coach, your guide on the side is what we call this show. We want to be the handbook to your humanity, giving you the tools, the skills, the ideas that you need every day to get through this crazy thing we call life. Welcome to the show, everybody. I think we've got a great show for you today. And I think we're going to get into a topic that truly can change your life if you let it. Because I think everyone's struggling with this one, okay? It's this overload, this life that we all are living that is so complicated in a way, so in your face, so competitive nowadays. We've got our kids going in every direction you can imagine. And it just doesn't seem like we have any time to actually focus on each other, to be together, to grow our families into healthy, happy people. So how do we take back our families in this crazy time? I don't know what we call it, just this time warp that we're in, where we're dedicating all of our time and energy to make our families better, and yet we still don't have time to actually focus on each other. Do you feel like you're starved? And do you feel like your family's starving from a lack of time together? If so, today's the day. We're going to be talking about how to give you some tools, some ideas, some very matter-of-fact practical ideas on how to find more time with your family and literally create some memories, some time together. We'll be bringing on an expert, DeAnne Flynn, who's written a book about this, and she'll give us her insight, as well as just the fact that I think a lot of us just need to actually take a second to think about it. We're so busy, we don't even have time to think about it, and then we just complain about how busy we are. I went out to dinner with a bunch of friends. We all have, children, anywhere from the, 3 to 6 children, and just average kind of 40-year-old couples. But it's so amazing how many of us are frustrated and exhausted and can't take anymore. So as we were sitting there, we thought, okay, I'm on this rebellious case where I'm done with my kids playing any sports or having any gifts or talents, okay? I'm just done with it. I feel like I just need to end that. So because I always want to make them the best they can be, and I want to grow these talents, and I mean, I'm being a little facetious, but honestly, I don't want them to play any more sports. I've got 5 boys that all want to play 3 sports, and luckily there's seasons for sports, but that means we got 5 boys going in 5 different directions. And so we sat at dinner with all of these friends, and we basically just said, really, okay, what do you think about just taking a sabbatical? 1 year, not having any sports for any of the kids. What's the worst thing that them missing 1 year could happen? What's the worst thing? And honestly, there is such incredible pressure. We were asking, what makes it harder for some of you to quit doing this, or for others to quit letting your kids or having your kids play sports or other activities or go to dance or go to piano? And what would happen? And a lot of them are just like, well, their friends are all doing it. We even got into the fact that some of the kids don't even really want to do it, but their friends are doing it. And because their friends are doing it, they're doing it. And all of a sudden, this peer pressure. So I realized a lot of us are stuck in the inability to manage our own time simply because we don't know. We have too much pressure. We're going too many different directions. We have kids that want to do it, and some want to do it, and some kind of want to do it, and some we really want to do it. And yet the reality is it's just coming from too many places. In fact, if you've listened to BYU Radio long enough, you've probably heard of Linda and Richard Iyer. They have a show on BYU Radio. But listen to this quote. This comes from a quote from one of their books that I found like literally 20 years ago, and it's so powerful. It says this: "We live in the first time and place in the world's history and geography where our challenges stem not from scarcity, but from surplus, not from oppression, but from options, and not from absence, but from abundance. Instead of struggling to find our next meal, we are struggling to get our busy families together long enough to eat a meal. Instead of fighting for freedom to make our choices, we are reeling in the complexity of 83 TV channels." By the way, that was many years ago. Now we have a lot more than that. "Tens of thousands of consumer items and almost limitless numbers of education, job, and lifestyle alternatives. It's not the sparse simplicity of too little, but the crowded complexity of too much that plagues our lives. And the answers lie not in the balance of our abilities, but in our ability to balance." Linda and Richard Iyer. Do you buy that? We live in the first place in time and history where our problem is not scarcity, it's surplus. We have so many options. It's not that we're being oppressed anymore. We're just being we have too many opportunities. And we don't know how to balance these abilities. So we're going to figure that out today on the show. And to get it started, we're going to go on a little journey with one of our producers, Bryce Tobin. Now, you may not think much of it now, but our ability to manage time will affect our future, right? Let's get ready for the Time Management Time Machine with Bryce Tobin.
It's here! It's the Time Management Time Machine! I'm going to take a few examples of people that I know and give an exaggerated prediction as to what they will be like in 20 years. Our first victim: every finals week, this person has to gather the roommates, provide the Facebook password, and then ask them all to change it for the duration of finals week. This is because this individual is incapable of maintaining their attention on something as crucial as finals when faced with the oppressive accessibility of Facebook. So what's in store 20 years down the road? Why, we have someone without the anchor of a potential bachelor's degree who will spend all day on Facebook, or whatever its contemptible descendants will be called. Not only will this person be eerily conversant with the goings-on of the lives of their friends and acquaintances, the lives of their children and their friends' children will eventually suffer the same fate. Our second victim is the "do everything twice because I didn't give myself enough time to do it right the first time." Now this is a model of efficiency, but what is in store in 20 years? Why, someone who has 2 of everything, of course. While 2 dogs, 2 cars, and 2 kids may not seem all that excessive, 2 mortgages, 2 trips to the grocery store, picking the same kid up twice from soccer practice, or booking the same flight twice is not only a waste of money, but a real waste of time. The future can be a bit scary, huh?
Yes, it can, Bryce. That scares me. That was very scary. It sure can be, and it's especially scary if you have no clue how to manage time. So that is our goal on the show today. We are going to be giving you the tools, the ideas for how to start feeding your family, how to get your time back. And we're going to be bringing on DeAnne Flynn, mother of 7, just an author of a great book about how to really make this happen, how to change your life and take your life and your family back. Literally, I think 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time. Her book is helping overloaded families focus on what matters most. It's called The Time-Starved Family, and we're going to help you throughout the show to literally regain some of your freedom through time. Again, if you know somebody that struggles with this, get ready. Grab them, get them by the stereo, or what do they call this? The radio. The stereo. That was a blast from the past. Get them back, and we'll be coming back after this break on the Matt Townsend Show on Sirius XM 143 BYU Radio. Welcome back, everybody, to the Matt Townsend Show. For the longest time. Does that music just seriously jogs my mind as I think about it? We are back with DeAnne Flynn, who is the author of The Time-Starved Family. And DeAnne, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Tons of fun. Let's. I'm thinking as you talk about family, you're mom of 7.
I am.
How old's your oldest?
My oldest is 22, and my youngest is 8, almost 9.
Yeah, okay. That's quite the spread. That's about what I've got.
Mm-hmm.
So you're in the mix.
I'm in the mix, but I'm seeing the light.
Is there a light?
Day. There's a light.
What does it look like?
The light looks like you can actually see an end. And what I mean by an end is the games that you were just mentioning.
Yeah.
They won't play sports into their adulthood.
Yeah.
So that's kind of good.
Well, you're already kind of like dissuading. We're very practical with our younger 3. Like, you know what?
Yes.
Not everyone's going to play pro ball.
You've learned, haven't you?
Yeah,
because
totally.
with your first children, you want them to do and try everything, and then you see that that's not necessarily good for your entire family or for them. Really.
That's right. And so now we're basically saying, you know what? Just sit at home.
No, we've become more
used to home.
practical and of necessity by the economy. So when the Time Star Family came out in 2009, the economy was at a low.
It was at a stop.
So many families had already made that move to cut back because they couldn't afford the activities and the lessons that they had once been able to do. But I was in a very similar situation to you that you were just describing with your friends at dinner in 2007. At a luncheon with many of my friends, and we were discussing the same thing. We were all complaining, yet no one was doing anything about it. And I had this conversation with really, really fabulous, articulate, capable women who were acting helpless.
Yeah, like,
that
what
made
do we
me
do?
think, wait a minute, aren't you in charge of your family and your schedule? So there is something you can do. And I've always said, if you don't take control of your time, someone else will.
That's right. Then they'll own you.
They'll own you. So I made a big decision with my husband, and we did cut back. We did what you were suggesting.
How did you
for
do?
a
Did
year.
you get 1 year? You just took a sabbatical.
Pretty much for everything. It wasn't completely
that.
everything, but it was pretty much everything.
Well, and what did it do to your family? To me, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it was much less stress. Obviously less expensive, but we let everyone pick one thing, and we concentrated on the basics, which to me are family time, family dinner.
Yeah.
Things that connecting every day, which is something you don't do typically as a family.
Too busy.
Too busy. And I will tell you that now that it's 2012, it's back to a struggle a little bit to keep that balance.
Chaos.
It's a thing that you have to, it's not necessarily chaos, but this kind of a fix with your family requires a lot of energy and constant evaluation. It's not something you fix once.
It's like discipline, isn't it?
It's like everything.
Yeah.
It's like dishes, laundry. It's like everything. It just comes back like the dust. You constantly have to set your sights. Now, you mentioned earlier in your introduction that we do these things because we want to keep up, and that's true, or our friends are doing it. But I feel like a lot of what we do in our families is competitive with comparison basis with our families, our friends, other people. I feel like that is part of the trap.
Yeah, totally.
Is just comparing. And of course you want capable children. And you say you're done with sports. We want talented children. Why? So they'll get the scholarship, so they'll go to college, so they'll be successful. So we kind of have to evaluate, why are we doing all that we're doing?
And who's it for? I mean,
Who's
is it
it
for
for?
them? Is it for us?
Exactly. I think sometimes as adults we relive our own childhood through our children. And if we didn't get to play the guitar, we absolutely insist that they do and do it well because it's our little dream.
Yeah, because you'll feel so much better if you can play the guitar when you're my age.
You will. So it's the piano is the, everyone.
Yeah.
I need you to play the piano. And it's this big debate. And I know your daughter plays very well.
does.
So obviously you have helped her to
Well,
practice.
honestly, but then what we were told is we didn't do it early enough.
Oh.
So we're like, we didn't push her hard enough, or she could have been.
And I want to know who told you that.
She did.
She plays beautifully.
I know.
Yeah, I can't imagine that she actually
She actually said that.
because she wanted to be a concert
Well,
pianist.
yeah, and we should have realized that her talent when she was 4 or 5.
Of course, it's your fault.
Exactly.
We need someone to blame.
And meanwhile, we have all these other boys sitting around that are pretty talented as well, and we push them, and they're like, "Leave me alone."
It's so true, but that is interesting about boys and girls too.
is.
Because girls they are much more driven, generally.
She just
speaking.
got it. She just picked it up.
Yeah, generally speaking. But I think it's important for your family to sit down together.
I love that
And
idea.
to talk about why you're doing the things you're doing, maybe have an overall plan or objective of saying, this is why we're doing these things, because we want you to Number one, be smart. So, of course, homework and studies are important. And in my book, I talk a lot about how you personally as a parent are not responsible for your child's homework or practicing, because then you're really handicapping that child.
Really?
Absolutely.
So I don't do their science projects?
No, you
How
don't.
about an Eagle Scout project?
I'll tell you what. I have fallen into that trap more times than I'd like to tell you that. I have 2 Eagle Scouts. My first Eagle Scout, I pretty much earned it for him. My second Eagle Scout, he earned it with his leader, who's also a mother, and she probably gets half of that.
That's right.
But I feel like I've learned a few things over the years. I'm almost 50, and hopefully I've learned a few things.
Oh, for sure.
As we do grow. But one of the main things, I think, is knowing when to say no.
Yeah.
You know,
we don't know how to say no, though,
no,
don't you think?
But we're creating this generation now of people who have a hard time doing things because they've had yes men, women parents. And then when someone actually makes them do some work or, effort in something, then it's got to be wrong or bad because that doesn't feel right.
It takes energy.
It's called anxiety.
That's right.
And I hear that all the time with young adults now.
Yeah.
I have anxiety. I'm thinking, okay, I've had anxiety my whole life. You push through it. It's stress. It's what it is.
And stress is healthy. Some stress, stress is this healthy kind of stress.
Yeah, and I know
they don't want to feel it.
Well, they blanket anxiety into a lot of different things because they've never really done hard things. Now, you might say playing football's hard because they're out in the sun, running around. Yeah. But they're kind of the golden boy. Yeah. They don't have to have a job. They don't have to necessarily do chores because they're on the field, and aren't they great because they're making the touchdown? And we kind of put them on a pedestal, and we kind of make them into a person that isn't prepared sometimes for real life.
And that could be the dancer, that could be the cheerleader,
absolutely.
The tumbler, whatever
absolutely.
it is.
Any of those things that require a lot. And so that's, as a parent, where you need to reevaluate sometimes and say, well, in the long run, what's going to be best for not only this child, but for us as a unit? You know, what's going to be best for our bank account? What's going to be best for our sanity? We're giving our kids French fries over the seat in their car seat behind us, driving up to fast food, fast everything, fast dry cleaning, fast drive up. Yeah. Everything, banking,
It's interesting because you're not even talking about time management. You're really talking about what's your vision, what's your purpose of your entire family.
But that is time management.
But it's interesting. Well, what else do you make your decisions on?
Well, you have 24 hours in every day, and that's what every person has. And so what sets us apart as human beings is how you use that amount of time.
Exactly.
So now every person is going to require a different amount of sleep, but really your waking hours, that's what defines you,
right,
Matt.
So that's where you got to begin, though.
Yeah. And so how are those waking hours going to define you as a parent and your family? Now, we do this little kind of interview thing with our children at the beginning of a school year, at the beginning of a new year, and at the beginning of the summer, where we sit down with them, we set goals, teach them how to set goals, so they have their little list of goals and the areas in which they should set them on their wall in their room, and then we discuss how they're going to go about it. But then it's pretty much up to them.
Yeah, you're on your own now.
Well, I mean, you check in and we talk every day about it, but really, I cannot make my child do a whole lot about, a lot of things. Yeah.
Even if we try.
Well, the forcing, all it does is make a rebellious child. It doesn't
work, exactly.
Yeah, so I love Faye and Klein with the Parenting with Love and Logic. Yeah. I love that book. What are you going to do? Throw it back to the child. What are you going to do? And make them fail, make them a decision maker and capable.
And own it. And now they can have the success.
Right.
They can suffer the consequence. Either way, it's theirs.
Now, when you talk about time management, there are, like I said, so many hours in a day. So let's just say your child says, after school, I want to play with friends. So you say, okay, then you'll do your practicing or whatever is required of you around the house before school. And, if that doesn't get done, then that will be your consequence, natural consequence. Yeah. We'll meet back here at 5:30. We'll eat dinner, and as long as everybody is on the same page as far as knowing what's going on, so maybe on a Sundays when we do our family council, go through the calendar, you figure out what has to happen, who needs what and when and how, and then everybody knows what's expected, pretty much. Things come up, right? But everybody kind of knows. And then you can see as a parent who's not doing a lot. I have friends who use the color code system where they'll make each child a different color. So you can see at a glance on the calendar who's overscheduled and who doesn't have enough to keep them busy. Yeah. With a big family, that's a great way to go.
It's huge.
So you can see that way. But calendaring's big. communication's big, so having that meeting.
Look how much time it takes to get them to the point to do it. That's probably where so many families are losing it, because it takes energy and focus and a plan and consistency. I always feel like we're failing because we're so inconsistent.
It's true, because you're human.
Yeah.
You're just a human being that gets tired.
Yeah.
And by the time you're down to the, kids will tease that their younger siblings get so much more. It's because their parents are just plain tired.
That's right. We're worn out.
But, it's just like a business. Being successful at anything takes time and energy and effort. And think of, there's nothing more important than your family.
Right.
So you kind of run it like a business in many ways.
Yeah, no.
Business with love.
Yeah. And most important business you've got.
Absolutely, yes.
And it actually, it can slip away from you,
Well, you're modeling the type of behavior that your children will probably, use in their own families. So that's something to think about.
Totally. You're preparing your grandchildren.
Exactly.
Your great-grandchildren for how they're going to manage their lives.
And we bite our nails sometimes when we see our kids parenting our grandkids, because we're thinking, oh no, really?
Exactly.
You're doing
what must our parents have thought? So you put the book together because you were kind of out on the limb yourself. You were on thin ground.
The subtitle is Helping Overloaded Families Focus on What Matters Most.
Yeah.
So you decide for you what matters most. Everyone's going to have a different idea of what that is.
And you just have to nail that down. Where do you go? Because it seems like that's part of the problem, too, is the blur. The blur of what matters most seems to kind of – it shouldn't be this movable thing. What matters most seems like it should be static. It should just stay.
Well, some principles are, but the needs do change
so
depending
on
which season you're in.
Right.
Yeah. The original title of the book was The Talent Trap, because I feel like talent development can be a trap.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure. But it broadened to the time-starved family, because we do talk about 16 principles that any family can use. The first is just deciding to thrive. It's a decision,
it's like a
not
choice.
just to survive.
Yeah, we're going to make this work.
Yeah, and then to realize that you can't do it all and do it all well, so you have to prioritize. Understanding that winning isn't the only thing. A lot of times we get really competitive.
Yeah, and don't you think that in our we just let life take us and just start carrying us downstream, and if we're not careful, that downstream's not always where we want to go.
No, and I think because of our society and how we are competitive, we actually think that more is more, when less is often more.
Yeah.
And so, it's just the evaluation, and sometimes we need to take a small step back.
Right. See, I think we're going to do this. We're going to take a break. When we come back from the break, though, DeAnne, I want to get into a lot more of the tools, specifically like how do you get your family to eat dinner together? Because that to me seems like such a magic moment if you'd make it that way. And how do you actually say no if you have some ideas? And because just like trying to get my friends to go, let's just all agree we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Let's just not do it. This year. Let's not play football this year. And they all looked at you like, what's your problem?
Right.
Why are you going against? It's seriously like you're trying to have this major revolution. So how do you say no to people? And what else do you stress? If you're not going to stress, busy activity as the goal of life, what is the ultimate goal that you teach your kids where we should be spending our time? So you be thinking of those.
I've got some
ideas. I know
ideas.
You've already got them.
Yep.
She wrote a book, for crying out loud. DeAnne Flynn wrote the book, Time-Starved Family, and they can get this where, DeAnne?
You can really get it anywhere. Desert Book was the publisher, but it's online at Barnes & Noble, Amazon.
It's everywhere.
Well, it should be everywhere.
It should, and it's not.
Well, it is probably everywhere.
All you got to do is look for it, right? We'll be back with DeAnne Flynn and a lot of other ideas for how to start feeding your family, get your time back, and maybe while you're doing it, seriously start to focus on what matters most in your life. You're listening to The Matt Townsend Show right here on Sirius XM 143 BYU Radio. Welcome back, everybody, to the Matt Townsend Show. Don't you wish you had too much time? I guess we all do have too much time. We just don't spread it right. That's right. We got to spend our time better. We are going to do a quick little featurette, I guess is what we're calling. And we're going to go to one of our producers, Corinne Collins, who's going to take a closer look at leisure time. You know, people just say maybe they're running out of leisure time. They don't have the same amount of time. Where does it all seem to go? Let's listen to Corinne Collins and find out.
What is this life if full of care? We have no time to stand and stare. Some of you might recognize that as a poem by William Henry Davies called Leisure, or Leisure, as you might say it. We never seem to have enough of it. Every day I wake up, go to school, go to work, do my homework, and I seem to barely have any time for a spare breath. Not to mention all the stress that all these things cause me. But are my elevated stress levels a result of my demanding schedule or my inability to manage time? Well, according to a recent study, 25% of our happiness hinges on our ability to manage stress, which also makes time management a key factor in our happiness ratings. According to Dr. Karen Matthews, a professor of psychiatry and psychology at the University of Pittsburgh, people who are engaged in multiple enjoyable activities are better off physically and psychologically, indicating that managing our time enough to be able to participate in leisure activities, or just things that aren't work and or school, is a benefit to our physical health. The results of Dr. Matthews' 2009 study on leisure found that adults who spent more time doing different leisure activities had lower blood pressure, waist circumference, body mass index, and cortisol measurements, which are all markers of good health. But how can we get to that point? We're all so busy, right? Well, ideally we would be able to just spend our time staring as long as sheep or cows, as William Henry Davies might say. But maybe it just starts with one small step. A leisure activity here or there, and then the rest will come later, hopefully.
Hopefully is the question or the statement of choice there. We are back with DeAnne Flynn, a mother of 7 children, and the author of the book, The Time-Starved Family, Helping Overloaded Families Focus on What Matters Most. DeAnne, welcome back.
Thanks. I'm going to talk in a British accent.
Don't you love her accent?
Yes.
She says leisure wrong,
I
though.
just wish I could speak like
I know.
that.
She actually can speak like an American and a Southern American. She can speak incredibly. She can speak like somebody from Utah.
She can.
She's amazing.
She is.
Corinne Collins, and we are back with DeAnne Flynn. Now, DeAnne, I wanted you to get a little bit more into your book because there's some interesting topics there. One thing that maybe to just start out with, one of your chapters is called Model Controlled Behavior. Mm-hmm. What's the idea there? Because to me, most of us are not very good at modeling controlled anything.
And I'm not either lately.
Aren't you? Are you struggling with that
I
one?
was when I was writing the book,
Yeah.
but it's something I struggle with. Because stress breeds just complete breakouts.
Right.
And the more children you have or the more stress you have, the more you're, the Army drill sergeant
Right.
hollering out commands, and it becomes more, just a big, I don't know, drill more than a home,
like
loving
commands.
home.
Yeah.
And so I feel like when you cut back on activities, you're more likely to model controlled behavior. When you are conscious of it and trying, you're more likely. And as I mentioned in the previous segment, the behavior we're modeling is likely the behavior our children will use when they are parenting, which is a sobering thought.
That is depressing.
Mm-hmm.
It should be. Oh, perfect.
Of
I have so
course.
much power to influence.
Well, you thought you were going to be. Do you remember when you started
for
out?
sure.
You looked at that little baby and you thought, I am going to do everything right for you. I love you so much, and I've read all the books. I've took the college courses.
That's right.
You have a PhD, for heaven's sakes,
Yeah.
probably. So you are going to be so good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So then reality strikes, and work and life and money and everything else that falls into the mix. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the child, but they get the brunt of it.
Well, and my kids are even telling my daughter, my oldest, is telling me, yeah, you guys are just, I'm not going to do it like you guys.
Oh, yeah. I'm
You
hearing
guys are
that too.
stressed.
Yeah.
And you're like, be quiet.
Yes. What?
Don't
Me?
talk back to me.
Yes. Just say it in a British accent.
I know.
What?
I need to. What?
Stressed?
That's Mary Poppins. by the way.
Yes, I can't really do it, but I really feel like that's something we should consider and think about often.
Totally.
Yeah, as parents. I feel like one of the things I want to talk about is eating dinner together as a family, because that is something that is on the huge decline in the past many years. And really, studies out of Harvard and Columbia have strongly suggested that that's one of the very best things you can do for your family.
Isn't that of all the things?
Of all the things.
Dinner time.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
Because dinner time improves and promotes parent-child communication. And when you get a teen, now when they're younger, they'll talk to you. We all know that children love to talk a little too much when they're younger. Yeah, but when they're older, they tend to clam up. And the parents who have good relationships with their teens tend to have better teens.
Yeah.
Making better choices.
Right.
So dinner time is the magical time to do that. Yeah.
It's interesting. Now, Stephen Covey, years ago, 30 years ago, said he saw the dinner table as like the altar.
Yes, almost.
It's the family altar. It's where we all come to the altar to just connect.
The boys, you have 5 boys, you said?
Yeah.
So that is definitely a trough altar for them because the boys, I have learned, feed them and they will love you. Feed them well and they will love you more. And
that's not a bad idea.
It's true. They
what do you do with the girls?
Well,
I guess you just talk.
Yeah,
while you're eating.
You do some talking, but you also teach them how to prepare a meal, which kind of is a lost art.
Totally.
You know, you get these kids going to college or off on doing service or missions or whatever they're doing, and many of them have never cooked. They've never prepared a meal.
Yeah.
Now, luckily, that's something that you have 100% control over.
Well, it's the food, but it's also, do they know how to clean? Do they know how? I mean, do they know how to wash their clothes?
Absolutely.
These are all things they should be learning.
They should be learning them, and we are the ones who teach those things. Because of our fast-paced lifestyle, we're eating more and more pre-prepared foods. We're going to drive-through windows. We're not doing that whole thing that our parents did with us for a number of reasons. Not just because that was what their paradigm was, but because it was the thing they could afford to do. Now, you were saying that Linda and Richard Iyer, who are great friends, said, there's so much excess that we have now, so many options that's really our challenge. And that is the truth, for sure. So one of our jobs as parents is to help our kids become capable by learning to take care of themselves, by learning to cook, to clean up after themselves, to do some mending, to do their laundry. It's surprising how many of my children's, I have 3 at BYU next year, have had roommates that have had zero experience in that area.
Oh,
Zero.
What a horrible roommate.
Well,
let alone a future
they're nice
spouse.
People,
Sure.
probably, but they really, the future spouse, the future parent. What are they going to teach their children? Are they just going to have Alice from the Brady Bunch come in?
Yeah, where is Alice?
Where is she? I want to know. So anyway, also eating dinner together positively affects the academic performance and the language skills of children. That is scientifically proven.
Because we're going to be talking at the table. And I even love the idea of asking a question like, what did you learn? Have them all come to you teaching you.
Right.
Everyone has to teach what they learned.
We always say, what's your best thing? We want to know what's happening in your life. We don't want to know your worst thing. We want to know your best thing. Yeah. And then family dinners foster healthy child development. Statistics show that teens who eat dinner with their families eat better food. Yeah, they eat more healthy. Food. They drink less alcohol, fewer reports of drug abuse. Eating dinner also helps kids who may struggle with peers. For instance, I've seen children who don't have a lot of peer interaction. Right. So they're in front of a screen or a TV, but that one time a day gives them a social lift as well, even though it's their family, that they have someone to connect to, someone who cares about them in their life.
And it should be your family. It shouldn't just be
But
Alice.
Oftentimes it is your friends, especially in the teens, because friends are everything to teens. Yeah. So some of those younger kids who maybe don't have those close friendships, they get lost in the shuffle.
Totally. Plus, you can bring your son's friends in. You can bring the teens into your dinner. Just our dinner goes on at 5:30 or 6. It's going to happen. If you want to bring people, bring them.
Absolutely.
But we're going to all be here, and you're expected to be here.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. You establish your routine, you plan ahead, and that's one of the problems I'm hearing from moms is there's nothing to eat in our house. I haven't had time to go to the grocery store, So it does take a planning ahead. When I grew up, my mom made a shopping list. It was always on the fridge. It's that kind of thing. You have a list. You go shopping. You plan what your meals are going to be.
I'm too busy running around to plan.
Well, that's kind of a lost art, too.
Totally.
Actually sitting down and saying, okay, these recipes require these ingredients, and I need to have them available to me in order to make a meal, which is kind of crazy. You would think that would just be a logical scenario, but it's very atypical these days.
Well, and so many times you're dropping your kids off and then you're sitting in a car waiting for the next one, or you're waiting, and maybe that's just what happens is we then go get lost in our phone when maybe we ought to be making our plan or anticipating
And now
later.
we have all these handy-dandy gadgets that we can easily make lists.
Which should make our lives easier.
They do not.
And they don't.
They make it more complicated.
And more stressful and
Yes.
complicated.
So we talked about making a plan. We talked about training your children, establishing a routine or a certain time, and just being positive about it. When you don't do it, just get back on track.
Well,
start over.
do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, start over.
But no matter what, we still have our family dinner time tomorrow.
We do. And when there are times when we get in a, tournament or whatever, you get off track for a while, and then that's when you don't get back on sometimes.
That's right.
When you kind of lose the routine for a while.
So maybe that's one of the reasons why Covey said it was sacred, is sacred things we always get back to.
Yeah.
Eventually, right?
Starting over. That's our big family motto. Start over.
Do over. I love that idea.
It happens a lot at the Flynn house. Another thing is teaching your kids to work hard. We talked about that a little bit in the first segment.
Right.
But, they're so busy that sometimes they don't have time to have a job, which I think is important outside of the home. Now, I hear all the time, but there are no jobs. There are jobs.
Yeah.
If kids are willing to work.
Or do jobs that need to be done and let me pay you to do them instead of handing you money.
Even if, and I'm not talking about from your mom or dad.
Yeah,
I'm talking about from
job
somebody else. We don't give an allowance. I don't believe in an allowance. I believe that you pitch in for living in a home and eating food and having a nice, clean bed to sleep in. But, so I've had kids who've sent around flyers who are under 14 for babysitting or weeding or whatever, watching your dog or your cat.
We just had kids from the neighborhood wash windows.
Yeah.
We've had them washing garbage cans.
Absolutely.
We've had them painting.
All those things.
It's out there. It just takes ambition.
Bagging at a grocery store, washing dishes at a restaurant. We've had kids do practically everything: snow cone stands, frozen yogurt, all those things. And some of them are seasonal. The fruit stands are seasonal. The honey baked ham packaging is seasonal at Christmas time. But definitely, if you're willing to get out there and beat the bushes, and that is something we should be teaching our kids.
Well, in the end, that'll buy you time, because if they know how to work, you can put them to work.
Yeah.
And not
just easy work.
No. Like, let's get that yard done.
Yeah, and a lot of times parents don't want to spend the time sitting next to them, hearing them complain as they get over themselves and learn how to do it. Right. I have a friend who puts a list inside of each room so that when you're assigned to clean the bathroom, there's a checklist that's laminated that says, this is what you do, this, then this, then this. Don't come to me until everything on this list is checked off. And then you model that behavior the first few times.
You have to deal with all the whining, but then you've done it. Now there's a standard. Everybody does it by the standard.
Even where to put the rags when they're done.
Love it.
All those things, because those are things that a child just doesn't know, or they're probably not going to do unless you teach them and show them.
And teach them and show them once, and over time it gets easier and easier. Then you don't have to do it every time.
I think so too.
Beautiful.
You also say, what do we do if we're not doing all these sports? You said maybe we take a break. Then what do we do? Okay, I have this little idea, and it also helps you get into college, because we want half the reason we're doing all these things is so they'll actually get accepted into a college and get a job. Or not just even a scholarship, just get accepted
and just be a human or a great citizen.
Yeah, anything. Service.
Love it.
Service is one of those things that is nothing sweeter on every level. It helps the person you're serving, it helps the individual who is serving, and it helps you get into college.
Yeah.
Every single act of service, write it down. Keep a notebook of it, because when you're writing those scholarship applications or those college entrance exams or entrance, information sheets, you will need to remember what you've done. And they even want hours, number of hours you've spent.
Yeah.
And my kids have gotten scholarships for serving, and I know that they're out there. You Google service scholarships, and they are there.
See. And it builds self-esteem. I think service, hands down, the number one way to build self-esteem. We always think it's about knowing yourself and getting into – but you know what? Knowing the service of others is the fastest way to find out who you are.
It's so true, getting outside of yourself. And that's a hard thing, especially for teen boys.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing.
Well, because it's awkward. And and then you feel that weird feeling of – goodness.
Yeah, I know, it's true. And you can give them some choices. If they don't have some good ideas, you can write out some ideas for them and sit down and discuss, which thing looks good to you. It's the love and logic idea. Which one do you want to choose? If they don't have any ambition whatsoever.
Well, and what if the idea was we take a year off from, taking care of all of our own fun and sports, and we go serve? I mean, people do that all the time.
They do.
We're going to go away to Kenya and serve. Well,
I know.
Why don't you just serve in your neighborhood?
You could serve in your neighborhood and it's free. However, I do think some of these expeditions, these humanitarian expeditions,
fantastic.
Kids, my 3 oldest have done them and my 4th is planning this next summer. And really, as a family, there are several opportunities that are drivable in Mexico, in Baja California.
Yeah.
There are orphanages, and you can just cross across Tijuana and go right down there and stay right on the orphanage.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
DeAnne, if you had to think of one thing, we have about 30 seconds. What is the number one tip, the number one key to getting your time back with your family?
Focusing on the things that really matter to you, the things that really count to you and your family.
And establish that. Establish what matters most to your family. And do that as a family.
Absolutely.
So is that our challenge? We're going to challenge everyone to go sit down with their family and talk.
Ours are good, smart, and nice. Those are our goals.
So explain that.
Good, smart, and nice. We want to make good kids, smart kids, and nice kids.
Perfect. And I bet you have that embroidered somewhere at your house.
How did you know?
I can just tell.
Yeah, you could see that.
It's brilliant.
I look domestic.
You've etched it out in a piece of wood. Good, smart, and nice. But see, that's so simple.
It is, but it's hard to do.
But that's what it's about.
That's what it's about.
DeAnne Flynn, thank you so much. Now, by the way, DeAnne has another book out that you might want to go look up called The Mother's Might, Why Even Our Smallest Efforts Matter. She has another book coming out in 2013 on Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. And this book you're going to want to go check out. Again, Barnes & Noble, anywhere online, Amazon, The Time-Starved Family, Helping Overloaded Families Focus on What Matters Most. DeAnne Flynn, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We're going to have you back and pick your brain.
I'm going
do the
to
widow's
practice
might.
my British accent before I come back.
Get it done. Thanks, DeAnne, and we'll be back after this break on The Matt Townsend Show on Sirius XM 143 BYU Radio. Welcome back, everybody, to the Matt Townsend Show. When I look in my Father's eyes. Now, we've been talking about time management, right? And just the importance of putting the most important things first. What, honestly, could be more important this weekend than your father? Than taking some time to go love your father and to dedicate some good words, some time, maybe a little good food, as DeAnne was talking about. It's the fastest way to our stomachs. But celebrating Father's Day. And as part of that, I on the morning show today, on Marcus Smith's morning show today, I did an interview with a bunch of other fathers, and I'm stealing it because it's not even going to be on until tomorrow's show. But in the end, what I want to do is play a couple minutes of some advice from new fathers. One person's about to have a baby with his wife, and he's asking questions to some other people on a panel of fathers. Check this out.
A question I had was, you have a lot of fathers that get all excited for their kids, and they plan everything out, and they say, I want him to be this huge football star. Yeah. And then the plan goes down the drain. So, how much planning do fathers go through and everything like that?
Very little. And to be perfectly honest, I have to divulge something about myself for this to make sense, because I'm a huge Disney fan. Huge Disney fan.
Nothing wrong with that.
Is that why you're wearing those ears?
Yes.
You take those off for a minute. That's kind of awkward.
And I always thought I would have Disney princess lovers. And so when our first was born, little girl, I was gearing up for the Snow White phase and the Ariel phase and Cinderella. And she, early on, like you were talking about, we noticed, you know what, she is not all girl. No. And she actually wants to be, and you ask her now, she's 6 years old, Haven, what are you going to be when you grow up? Construction builder.
Cool.
Or a paleontologist. She's into dinosaurs, trucks, everything boy.
NASCAR.
And what I say...
NASCAR, there we go.
She loves Kyle Busch. I'm cheering for Kyle Busch in NASCAR.
My daughters follow NASCAR, but I force them to.
There's a saying in our home that with Haven, she's all boy, that girl. And
That's
so
cool.
I've had to swallow a lot of that. I want to buy her costumes and dolls of all these Disney princesses, and there has been none of that with her. Now, child number 3, 9 months old, little girl, there's some hope. I'm hoping that she wants to go into this princess phase for 6 or 7 years.
Let me warn you something about the princess phase. Because I have four princesses.
I had a son go through it, but I don't want to talk about it.
That's for the. No, we're not going to leave that.
I have four princesses at home, and we have all the Disney costumes. They're all in a dress-up box, and that dress-up box repeatedly is empty every single day, and it is a mess all over
costumes all over the home. Is
yes,
this what you're getting at? Well.
Yeah, exactly. And those costumes are not cheap.
Excellent. A little taste of the morning show here on BYU Radio, and just kind of the joy of being a father, a young father. It was fun to have us sitting around and talking to Miles Nielsen, whose wife's about to deliver a brand new baby, and just to think, oh boy, what has he got in store for him? And honestly, it's so powerful to no matter how frustrated we might be by our children, today's show was really about finding the time to be together, finding the time to create those memories that matter the most, and to create the feeling of being there for each other and caring after each other. That's why time matters. And again, I'm just going to challenge you. Go spend some time. Go try to take back your family, and maybe most importantly this weekend, go spend some time with your dad. Thank Dad for what he's brought you and given you in life. Thank him for who you are. Thank him for the little things he's given. And maybe just more importantly, remember that time flies, and you're not going to have him around forever. One of my some quotes that we were looking up when it comes to time is there's a great one here by Carl Sandburg that says, "Time is the coin of your life. It is the only coin you have, and only you can determine how it will be spent. Be careful lest you let other people spend it for you." If we've learned anything today, let us learn that our time is ours to spend. We're the ones that eventually will have the accounting on that money and that time. We're the ones that will either take these moments of life and turn them into something special, or we're the ones that will have the regrets when we spent too much time caught up in the thick of thin things, if you've heard that quote before. Now remember, take care of your dad. Go love on your dad. Take a little time. And if I would just suggest, make sure that this Father's Day you make a concerted effort to tell him actually how you feel. Look him in the eye. You don't have to make it too mushy, but spend the time to say, "Dad, I love you. You've made a difference." Maybe even write it out. Let him know how much of an impact he's had. And remember, as we were taught earlier by DeAnne Flynn, how we lay these ideas down, how we teach our children to do this is going to be how they will do it with us. So now's the time to gather your family around and start teaching them the importance of families, and what better day to do that than Father's Day. Thanks for listening, everybody. Again, this is the Matt Townsend Show. Anytime you want to give us your advice, your feedback, all you got to do is go to mattchat@byu.edu. That's mattchat@byu.edu. Get on Facebook, look up BYU Radio. You can tweet us at BYU Radio. And anytime you want, Monday through Friday, we're here 5 o'clock Eastern Time. We're replayed again 7 o'clock Eastern Time right here on the Matt Townsend Show on Sirius XM 143 BYU Radio.